I have to select the kick drum as well. So now you can see we can treat all of these sounds with just one volume meter here. So let's say we want to set the different volume level of all of these drums here. We can just do it with one volume fader here. And we can also do different stuff now. We can just take, let's say we want a reverb here. So let's choose this reverb here. We can set it to maximum width, and let's get rid of the dry signal here. And now we're going to have this as an effect in the drum bus. So we can now take this dial button here and just have it set to minimum or maximum, and we can set how much of the reverb we want. So for instance, we can automate this now. We can automate this to, let's say, somewhere in the track we want the drums to have a lot of reverb, and then we want to get rid of the reverb. Or you can set how much you want of the reverb signal. So you can just tell FL Studio how much of the reverb you want on the drums here. Let's try it out. And as you remember in the previous lecture, we created the templates for FL Studio. We also created the buses for the different instruments. So you can see now we have our compressor, and it's already doing its job for the drums. So we actually don't need to make anything in the compressor here, other than if you wouldn't like the sound of the compressor, of course. But just a preset, just a drum preset for the compressor, and that will make your drum sound like one rather than individual samples. So it's already doing its job there, and you don't actually need to do anything if you have all of these set up in the templates that you're starting out with. So you just basically import different samples, throw them in there, then you route all of the drums to the drum bus here, and you're basically good to go, you know. So you can just start to arrange your track and work very, very fast within FL Studio. But as you can see here, I always recommend you to have a reverb setting in your buses here, and you have to make sure that you have the wet signal to maximum and the dry signal to 0 here, because you only want the reverb signal when you're messing with this dial button here. Same goes with EQ. Now we have the kick drum here as well. So the kick drum's bottom is going away because we have this. So let's exclude the kick drum from the drums bus here. So let's go to the kick drum here, and we're going to take away the cable and just route it back to the master basically. So now if we disable the drums bus here, very basic to do so. So that is how you group different things and create buses in FL Studio. It's very easy to do so. I recommend you to work this way because it's going to make your life a lot easier when you create your track and when you start to mixing and stuff. And I always recommend you to do this while producing, and not just thinking of it like, oh, I will handle this later on in the mixing stage, you know, and just throwing that problem away and just getting messy, because you're going to have a lot of different work when you're going to set up all of the individual sounds. Let's say that you have hundreds or thousands of sounds even in your project. That's not uncommon, you know, when you're creating big, huge projects. And let's say that you have 500 sounds, for instance, and then you have to set it up everything in mixing stage. Let's say you want to have every individual sound in their own like mixing channel here. Then it's going to be a lot of work for you. So I don't recommend you to do that when you're like mixing. You have to do it when you're producing. That way it's going to be a lot easier to go to the mixing stage. I will show you when I create the full track how I work, and you will see that the mixing stage is actually going to be very, very short. It's not going to be a lot of mixing, and this is how I notice how other big producers out there that I worked with, how they handle the mixing stage, because the mixing stage is very important. You need to level your different sounds. You need to, and that is actually the most important thing in the mixing stage. It's just to level different stuff with the volume level, basically. And then just EQ, of course, and compression and other stuff like that. But it's going to be a lot easier to handle the different EQ section and the compression, for instance, and other stuff like that when you have volumes already set. So when you produce, you group your different sounds together, you set the volumes for them when we're producing, and then when you go to the mixing, it's just basically EQ and compression, and that's all in the mixing. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that when I create the track, so you will see everything of that. All right, guys. So I hope to see you in the next lecture.